Monster Hunter World has all the bullet points of a game that I should hate. Crafting systems, grinding the same missions over and over, a big hub area when a menu would have sufficed, and so on. Yet the whole thing hangs on the gameplay, and it is done so well that I cannot stop myself from coming back for more. The story follows the titular band of hunters as they travel the world in search of horrible monstrosities to murder. In the world of Monster Hunter, mankind is far from the top of the food chain, and indiscriminately killing everything in sight isn't exactly the most efficient method of survival. Instead, they hunt monsters with the intention of studying their species and their roles in the environment. This time on the trail of the humongous Sora Magdaros, and figure out why its species occasionally makes a long pilgrimage across the ocean. It's a neat idea. I like the theme of what is essentially a group of scientific cavemen who are way in over their heads, but the story never goes anywhere beyond that. You have the excited newcomer, the grizzled veteran, the mysterious wanderer, the hardcore warrior that the game is desperately trying to convince you is really cool, but in the end, the game doesn't do anything with anyone. They never join you on any hunts, not really anyway. Nothing bad or particularly good ever happens to them. They kind of just hang out in the background and commentate on what's going on around them. The one character that does drive the story is your klutzy partner who constantly gets you in trouble. But again, she mostly just hangs out, and any trouble that she does get into is resolved as quickly as it started. The story is a wash, and the long cutscenes add so little to the game that they start to feel more like interruptions than anything else. The graphics are absolutely incredible. The variety of colors match the tone of each area, and even the plain desert is decorated with massive twisting pillars of stone to keep it from feeling too empty. Grass in the environment reacts to wind from heavy swings, and little animals scurry away from you before you can catch them. I'm usually not one to make a big deal for graphics and art design, but it's really impressive how much of the environment feels so alive. It's pretty jarring how badly the frame rate drops for objects in the distance, but for any of the up-close action that actually matters, nothing ever felt off to me. Animations aren't always the greatest, especially the kung fu style lip sync.
You scared us. We were talking about going out to look for you.
All's well that ends well.
But it never got so bad for me as to ruin the game. The story dragged itself through the mud just fine on its own. The music is kind of a hit and miss. Some tracks, like the Rotten Vale and Basil Juice's theme, are excellent, but most of the tracks are forgettable and just loop in the background. None of them are awful, but very few of them stand out. Above all else, the gameplay is what you're here for. You pick a mission, you kill the target monster, rinse and repeat until you've killed them all in a variety of locales, and that's the game. As you kill monsters, you can take their parts and pieces to build better equipment and give you an edge in future battles. But rarely is this overtly required. Most of the game can be completed with suboptimal equipment, except for a few difficulty spikes that demand for a sharper weapon or beefier armor. But it's usually enough to get by through a combination of skill, luck, and perseverance if you really don't want to grind for monster parts, or if you like to challenge yourself. And the game can be quite challenging all on its own. Each monster has its own unique attacks and behaviors. Some of them are more observant, while others are hyper-aggressive. Some like to roam the entire map, and a few prefer to stick to their own little corner. Some monsters will dig underground, others will fly, one of them spits poison, one can blind you. Each monster is different and incredibly fun to figure out how to take down. The game claims to have 30 different monsters, although there are several repeats and similarities, so it's closer to 22. But even the ones with a new coat of paint can surprise you with new attacks. On top of your powerful adversaries, the tools at your disposal are equally as impressive. The 14 different weapon types are shockingly varied, and even weapons that are somewhat similar still demand a different approach. I'm almost ashamed to admit that I played the whole game solely using the gun lance, but it's incredibly obvious that there is bound to be something for everyone, and landing powerful hits while watching the monster reel back in pain is oh so satisfying. Best of all, every weapon is available right from the start. You simply upgrade their stats as you proceed in the game, and it's fairly easy to power up a different weapon if you want to switch to something else later on. Even the items have a surprising amount of utility, whether it's to lay a trap for a monster, or to throw an item at him to prevent him from flying away. The smaller monsters aren't as big of a deal, and are basically just distractions or annoyances more than anything else. There's very little in the way of getting to the giant monster battles that you're here for. In fact, all of the little things that do get in the way of that are what mars the experience for me. Loading times are a little long, and I hate having to return to the home base for the game's little extras. Turning in my mini objectives, collecting new plants from my garden, buying limited time items from the shop, I don't care. This isn't what I'm here for. Thankfully, it's mostly optional, but the nagging feeling to keep on top of this stuff, like customizing my food order, fishing at each water hole I find, collecting every mushroom I see, you gotta train yourself to ignore most of it. Focus on your immediate goals and you'll be fine. And I feel like that's a big part of the beauty of Monster Hunter. You can put in as much or as little effort into it as you'd like, but the experience will still be thoroughly enjoyable. Even if you play the game straight without the optional content and doing the minimum of grinding, you've still got a good 30 to 40 hours to go through, or more if you're willing to put in the additional time. I'm at 150 hours now, just building new armors and weapons to see what else the game can offer me, and I haven't had enough. Plus, Capcom has already announced the addition of new monsters and bonus quests as free DLC, which will no doubt further lengthen the game's longevity. All this isn't to say that I don't have any issues with the core gameplay. I really hate these unblockable animation attacks that some monsters have. They look like any normal attack, so I'm never quite sure if I should dodge or block, and it's annoying for how long they take control away from the player. The environmental hazards and traps are insanely powerful, and a monster can actually kill itself by accident if it triggers one.
Next up, Diablo.
It's always cool when two monsters run into each other and fight it out, but it also feels cheap because it's a major damage dealer and also gives you a helpful diversion for you to regroup or sharpen your weapon or heal. The camera works for the most part, but every once in a while you'll get caught in a really nonsense situation. Mounting a monster can be really strict sometimes, but for seemingly no reason, it becomes hilariously lenient at the most random moments. But despite all the odd hiccups, it's still an incredibly fun game to play, and it works far more often than it breaks. And still more, there's multiplayer too, and it works well. Getting others to join you in the middle of a mission is a breeze, and I never noticed any lag or hiccups at all in the process. I mostly played single player, but it is definitely satisfying to fight side by side with another player. It is annoying how the whole team shares the same pool of extra lives, and a total of 3 deaths leads to a game over. But it's still cool, and it works, and if you've got a like-minded buddy, then this is easily a really good time. Is it fair to say that this game is absolutely for everyone? Not really. Monster Hunter clearly follows the mantra of hit it until it dies. You're going to repeat the same combos over and over for a while, and the average mission can easily take 20 minutes. Severing tails and breaking body parts are awesome indicators of damage, but monsters do feel like bullet sponges. A lot of times, they seem to take forever to kill. But before you even get there, you'll need to get used to the awkward controls and weird combos, which feels like it might be an unnecessary carryover from the older games which suffered from limited control schemes on handhelds. I can also understand many people not being a fan of redoing missions to grind for materials, and it's very easy to be blindsided by a surprise attack that kills you in one shot. If you're not willing to learn your target inside and out, or grind for better gear, then you're going to be frustrated more often than not. And again, it doesn't help that the story is so lackluster and drags a good chunk of the game to be slower than it needs to. But if you can put up with the flaws, then you'll find rewarding and varied gameplay, beautiful graphics, engaging battles with challenging monsters, plenty of playtime and replayability. You've got to try it for yourself. This game is amazing. Thank you for watching my review of Monster Hunter World. If you would like to be updated on my future videos, feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow me on Twitter.